Welcome to Tekedia Daily. I'm Ndubuisi, Ekekwe. Our conversation today will focus on Interswitch and why this pioneering digital company should acquire Konga, an utility bank, in order to reposition itself in Nigeria and an African market. Interswitch was one of the companies actually in Nigeria that demonstrated the whole optimism of a African rising. And a young man who was just in Lagos like every other person saw an opportunity that he could build a digital payment system that could essentially change and transform the banking sector in the country. He made it happen. And just like that, Nigeria was immediately connected into the digital payment world. Interswitch was something really good. It was a very big product, a very great company in Nigeria. And it gave us the Valve, it gave us the Quick Teller, it gave us the Smart Gov Retail Pay. And some of these innovations and some of these products and services were actually very catalytic in connecting Nigeria banking sector into the global bank financial sector. So he made a real impact. And this company made a very, very huge impact, not just in the banking sector, but also in the small and medium scale enterprise, especially in the startup ecosystem. People saw a very progressive and upcoming market opportunity in Nigeria. It also bought a company like Vanso for $50 million and invested in its entrepreneurship fund in ACE, African Courier Express, founded by the Jumia Nigeria founders. And he's also invested in Street Trader about $1 million and bought 60% value in Bangkok, Uganda. So Interswitch is a Nigerian company, but it's also one that has shown increasingly to have a Pan-African vision, because Nigeria alone cannot be the domain where it has to operate. This company received a major investment from Helios, a company founded by a Nigerian living in London and one of the most respected private equity firms in the world. I think it invested nearly $100 million for a majority stake many years ago. But of course, this company, this PE, has to figure out a way for exit. So over the last few years, Interswitch has essentially struggled. In short, there was a time the valuation was expected to have reached up to $1 billion when it was thinking of going into exiting the market through an IPO in the London Stock Exchange or the Nigerian Stock Exchange, both of them together. It was also rumored that it has also hired bankers, investment bankers, that will help it make sure that this particular exit happened. But of course, unfortunately, Nigeria is still a country tethered on its crude oil with a cyclical boom and bust. So as Nigeria went into recession, the currency collapsed. And when the currency collapsed, of course, many things happened. One of those things was just like people don't even have money. And when people don't have money to spend, it's going to affect a company that focus mainly on helping people make payments. So that was a very big problem. Another one was the scarcity of the foreign currency. How can you ask people to give you a $1 billion valuation in a country that was struggling with scarcity of foreign currency? But irrespective of that, there are emerging challenges in the sector. And one of them is that foreign companies are getting interested about Nigeria. From Stripe, PayPal, to Visa, to MasterCard, Nigeria is becoming not necessarily an infant economy in the infant sector, in the payment system, but actually becoming a country that everyone is interested in. And when you look at how these companies are juggling, you realize that Interswitch can suddenly find itself in a position where it may not necessarily be at the epicenter. And that is a very huge risk for it, because if companies like Visa, MasterCard are increasingly becoming very solid alternatives, it means that over time, it cannot even sustain its present valuation. So you have Flutterwave, you have Paystack, you have some of these companies that are having Pan-African ambitions. Interswitch is not what is driving them. It's not what is powering the technologies. They are figuring other ways of making that happen. And as they do that, it doesn't really look well for Interswitch. So that is why we think that this company needs to have a new strategy. And it's going to be a new strategy that depends with a clear understanding that even though it has been providing switching connectivity networks for banking, helping to provide systems, processing for the ATM systems across many cities in Nigeria, that is something that it cannot just rely. Because as banks continue to see that investment in technology, especially in the digital technology ecosystem, over the years are paying off with more people processing things digitally over writing physical check. Their future investments are going to be in technology. So there is a likelihood that these banks can bank together and certainly say, hey, we are not going to pay Interswitch for any service it has been provided to us. So we want to work together in order to save that cost. We saw that in NIPS. So, and that is a very huge challenge. The problem of suddenly coming up one day and the people you serve have displaced the service that you are trying to deliver to them. So the best thing for this company is to figure out how it has to displace, disrupt, and innovate from within before these existential threats happen. And one key is that we think it has to buy a bank. It has to buy a bank to get a license so that Interswitch with its pedigree, with its digital nativity, can deliver internet-only banking institution in Nigeria. In other words, buy the bank, sell all the assets, and focus exclusively the 21st century banking. Let it just be an internet-only bank. And use that to pull the data you get from this bank, the one you can get from NIPS, the one you already have on Interswitch, and build a Vitiso credit system in Nigeria. Once you do that, that gives you a very powerful portal system where people will connect to you for credit records, for credit systems. And when you do that, you become extremely indispensable. Visa will not have that, MasterCard will not have that. But you can have an opportunity to build that kind of environment. It's going to be extremely difficult for it to do that without having a leg into the financial sector. And when it does that, it can now pioneer a new sector of lending right there in Nigeria, making it possible for customers to come to the internet, customers that are processing through it, just like we have in the United States of America for Square and other companies that are using data that are making it possible to actually give loans to customers because that data is coming through their own network. Interswitch is processing payments for some SMEs and it knows how much they are generating through cash flow. It can always make a loan. But it needs to have the ability to take it to the highest level through a banking license. Konga is good. Konga is going to bring in customers. You're not really buying Konga because of the inventory. You're buying Konga because Konga brings in customers. Konga also brings technical know-how about the future e-commerce platform in the nation. It needs to be a platform company, specifically focused on marketplace. It doesn't have to have. So when it has this capability of providing that marketplace, it now uses some of the warehouses of Konga to make it possible for people that are going to sell in this platform to have access to where they can store it. I'm telling you that agriculture could be a very critical thing. If Interswitch makes it possible, it can become a vehicle to help some of these big agriculturists, from big farmers who are looking for places to store their grains and store some of their assets, that they are now looking for market opportunities across the world. So it can play a role working with companies like Dangote Farms to see how it can position and drive moving some of these old traditional industries into the digital realm. And as it does that, it will close a lot of platforms. It close a lot of opportunity for new people to come because it has to drive a sustained differentiation with a long-term objective to protect its stuff with nothing but solid customer service and scale. And that is where innovation will come in. So it has to look how Unity Capital provides that, Konga gives its customers, and then it has to drive logistics. It has already invested in ACE, the logistics company founded by Jumia Nigerian founders. He has to see how can he expand that business. Because at the end of the day, logistics is the strategy. Logistics is the missing link in the e-commerce sector in Nigeria. How can he build that business and use to drive it? We are very confident that the future of this company is strong, but he has to look at making sure that it's not catered to the needs of the banks of today. Because we do believe vividly that the banks certainly, most of them will systematically begin to cut off in future. Well, I recall the day in our business when we just woke up and saw that GTB has changed Interswitch to GTPay. All of a sudden, they have a new platform. So that is a risk. And that is why Interswitch cannot wait for all of them to do that. It has to begin to move and compete vigorously. You are listening to Tekedia Daily. Thank you.